Soviet Social Republics. And they'd say, oh, but aren't you so glad that you're in America? I said, well, I know a lot of Russian filmmakers. They have a lot more freedom than I have. All they have to do is be careful about criticizing the government.
Good afternoon to most, good evening to others. Welcome to a special episode of This is Revolution Podcast. I am your host, Jason Miles, joined with me by the faceless voice of reason in Tucson.
Hello, hello.
Let's bring you up on the screen there. Bam.
Bam.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Awake now.
Yeah, I'm almost there. That's what she said.
Ah, she did. And then I said, sorry.
Sorry.
Yep. And that's why we don't speak. So how do you want to start this off? We've never done this before, I don't think.
No, not once.
Not on once. So what are we going to start with?
I am not sure. I'm trying to look at that notification gang here. Secret Asian Dan is in the chat.
Secret Asian Dan?
Mm-hmm.
We have a person that watches the show with that name?
Yes, we do.
Why don't I know this person in real life?
This person is kind of amazing. What a cool name.
Yeah. Have they been watching the show for a long time?
Yeah, sure have.
Why didn't you tell me about this person?
Been here, Secret Asian Dan says.
You know what? Okay, so now that you read the name properly, I always read it as something else.
Yeah, it's hard to read all together.
I'm not going to say what I thought it was because I am a little on the special side.
Sometimes words are tricky.
Yep, to say the least. But yeah, we are doing a stream today because this is the last day for us to raise money for our feature-length video essay / documentary. I wanted to bring the guy that's helping me put this together, and he, as usual, is on set somewhere he's actually north of LA County, and I forget what he's working on at the moment. He's always working on weird stuff. So sadly, he can't be here, but we have a time scheduled where he's going to come down here. We're going to bang out all the kind of final edits we have. As I've seen the first cut, and then we decided to add some more stuff to it. And by we, it was me. Decided to add, you know what this thing needs? Another 25 minutes.
Oh, you're the king of bloat.
That's not going to help my low self-esteem.
No, it's not.
But it's a true story. If you know me in real life, it's a true story. But adding that extra part, which I originally wanted in the beginning, and he decided we're going to move it more towards like right before the conclusion, which I think is a good idea. You know, I'm glad he is here to save me from myself. As this usually these things are like 20 minutes when I make them at best. And it's the footage that causes them to be longer because there's probably about maybe 10, 15 minutes of actually like reading. But for this one, it was like 15 pages, 20 pages of writing and clip directions, mostly writing. I didn't have that many clip directions for him, but it was a lot to get into. Did you watch any of that documentary I told you to watch before we did this stream?
No.
Oh God, you are the worst.
The Peterson one?
Yeah.
I was sleeping.
Wow.
More valuable than watching a documentary, I promise.
You're supposed to bring that up on this. We'll talk about it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, why is he talking to me about this?
That was like the whole reason why.
You didn't tell me why at all.
Part of your job is to also
Oh,
read my mind.
gosh.
You know how people say, I'm not a mind reader. And then I go, well, that's what MT's for. And then you tell me why I said what I said.
Why you said what you said.
What is your job? That's how you hold all this stuff together. Come on, MT. But the feature length documentary is literally about the way we consume media, juxtaposing it with pro wrestling. I was watching a lot of wrestling documentaries for no good reason, and also I just finished a long video essay on Black cinema and how it kind of hasn't really changed the way we think it has over the years, from exploitation to exploitation in just different ways. There was the, I don't know, I guess we can say the pull up your pants era of Black cinema with Spike Lee, where people, where he kind of killed the super Negro. I mean, I think we said that on air before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I said that also with the stream of TIR. That's from you. You said that.
I was the one who said
You
that.
coined that phrase. Yes, that Spike Lee killed. You want to say it? Say it.
Spike Lee killed the super Negro.
We didn't say Negro.
We coming for you.
That's what we said.
Okay. Spike Lee killed the super Negro
Mhm.
with Mars Blackman.
Oof. Oof. And what killed Mars Blackman? It's like a self-inflicted wounds.
I guess.
John Singleton.
John Singleton.
Secret Asian Dan says Spike Lee killed him. All we had left was Handyman. I mean, there was some good academic writing. Manning Marable actually wrote some interesting pieces on the rise of Spike Lee. And there's actually some good historiography. How do you say that?
Historiography.
I'm going to go with your New York pronunciation of it.
New York.
Yeah, so you say it just like Spike Lee would say it. On Spike Lee and kind of his rise, which isn't, I don't think it's the rise that people think it is. He doesn't really get validated by quote unquote Black audiences. He doesn't even really get put on until white audiences give a standing ovation to She's Gotta Have It at a film festival in San Francisco. So he represents, in my opinion, the growing Black middle class and their representation that people wanted to see on the screen. Spike Lee comes after the rise of Cosby. So his movies, there's something about his movies when they come out, he becomes like this is what the authentic black story is, and black exploitation. Everything you saw in it was not real, and it was exploitive, and it was horrible for black people. And Spike Lee is righting this wrong. And Spike Lee definitely got a lot of pushback from some of his movies, especially what's the one that we don't like, where they throw the garbage can to the window for no reason?
Um,
I keep wanting to say
do the right
Square.
thing.
Yeah, almost. Do the right habit.
Do the right habit.
um, because he's portraying his New York, and his New York doesn't look like maybe the New York people want to see, which is like the rundown Bronx. They want people almost. What's funny about like Spike Lee and even Eddie Murphy? I don't know if you remember the knocks on Boomerang when it came out that it was an unrealistic movie because it existed in this totally black world.
Mm-hmm.
And Spike Lee's movies existed in a more polarizing world, I think, where white people are just kind of uber caricatures, which are kind of funny. Like
Yeah.
definitely made me afraid in New York when I first went there.
Did it? Oh.
Dude, have you ever seen a Spike Lee movie? White people are just so fucking racist. Is there any white person in a Spike Lee movie that isn't racist? Wait, I'm thinking about it. I don't think there is.
No, the chick that was getting banged out in Jungle Fever.
Isn't that like the end thing that she's just, chilling,
I
exploring?
guess.
I mean, I bet she's racist now after the way he dumped her.
Ouch. Ouch.
But
She's racist now.
yeah. But I don't know. You look at those movies, and then you kind of get the rise of the hood film, which is all in reaction to people saying that this isn't the definitive story. And John Singleton kind of tells his Spike Lee-ish story about his upbringing in a kind of economically mixed South Central. I can't speak for where you're from, but definitely where I'm from has neighborhoods like that. Where I grew up kind of is a neighborhood like that, where not everybody is on food stamps like they'd like you to believe.
Right.
I definitely had a neighborhood like that. So then you get the derivative of that, which is Menace to Society. Menace to Society is almost it's a note for note remake of Boys in the Hood. And it kind of answers all the criticisms that Boys in the Hood got. And one of the big criticisms that Boys in the Hood got was it wasn't authentic enough. It was like an after school special of what the inner city was really like. And then you get Menace to Society, which is, this hopeless tale of just hopeless people. Like everyone in it is hopeless. There's no answers other than just these Negroes are violent. Please get
Negroes.
Yeah, oh yeah. It might as well have ended with "Please sign a crime bill."
And here you go, right on your desk.
They're just shooting babies on big wheels out here in South Central.
Well, I mean, I didn't have the opportunity to go to California,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously populated with white people with blonde hair and blue eyes.
There's some,
But apparently there's pockets of Negroes,
big ones,
and it sounded terrifying. It looked terrifying, and if you wear the wrong color, they'll kill you. It's like, oh my god, I
That
love
was
wearing
LA.
blue jeans.
LA is a different place to me because they have a gang culture that is very foreign to the way I grew up in the Bay Area, because we don't have the same gang culture. It's more neighborhoods than it is like Bloods and Crips. There's definitely Mexican gangs, but their assimilation into the population is very different, than what you have down south. And a lot of that is from prison, dictates a lot of what goes on the outside. So the Bay is just different. It's the most like heterogeneous, wonderful ghetto I could ever imagine, and I'm so happy that I grew up there.
We can tell.
As you can tell, all my friends that come on this show.
The Bay Area is all one word.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at it. Look at E40's latest video, and to me, that is the Bay Area personified.
Wow.
From the dancing to the lingo to the way people look, it's just what it is. And when you back to the whole movie thing, after the Hood era, then you kind of get the rappers get into film, and you get like these Black Godfather stories of like drug kingpins, glorification of the 80s crack era. Everybody lost their mind when Paid in Full came out.
Paid in Full.
I know you went right to the theater because every young woman your age, 28,
28.
was all about Mekhi Phifer.
Just so everybody knows, over the This Is Revolution logo, we have a QR code for you to donate to Kayfabe. Donate to the completion of an incredible project.
You want to read that? You want to read that super chat, Toussaint?
Let's see.
I put it on the screen.
Ken Cohen says, Can my part in the film say Deep State, we're coming for you, Wigger?
Yeah. Yes, it can.
Yes, it can.
One of the things that I wanted to do, because I wanted to make the movie like kind of cool and interesting at the end. And since it is something I'm a part of, I also wanted to make it fun and not depressing. And usually when I end these essays, I try to end on a little bit of an up note, to have some sort of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one where there was no hope in my soul as I was like writing this out. I stopped writing for like a month, and I came back, and it was still like, I don't feel like there's a message of hope to put in here. I tried really hard. So what I thought, and I ran this by the director that's put it together, and he laughed and thought it was funny. I was like, what if at a certain donation level, people make wrestling promos and they like challenge, us or whatever. I thought that would be fun to have people make little wrestling promos, and we'll fit them in at the end and have this montage of wrestling promos. And then of course we'll make, some silly wrestling promos at the end as well. But I thought that was going to be fun and cool. I kind of wanted to mix in real life interviews, which is definitely something Alex and I have been messing with. And he's like, I don't know. Because I would like to hear, and maybe that's a special feature that we put in. I want to hear other people's opinions of how they view wrestling, and then how they view the way we see media. Because the way we digest media kind of helps us understand the world. Mm-hmm. And if everything we understand is always so black and white, you're going to miss nuance. And I was with my neighbor the other day, who's an older man, and I don't necessarily tell people what I do. Like, they know I do a show, but I don't know exactly what the show is about. And I lie all the time and say it's about history. It is
really?
Yeah.
Do you think you seem like a history show host?
Well, then the next thing people say is, you can make money off that, huh? Interesting.
Making history fun and a little zesty.
Yeah. And they look at me and they go, Or if there's kids around, they're like, hey, he's a YouTuber. And then they go, oh. And then I'm like, it's nothing cool. It's about history. And they go, But we were talking, and he brought up that he likes to play golf, and the guys he plays golf with are big Trump guys. And so that made me kind of like, oh God, is this guy a Trump guy? Because we've talked before. We went out to dinner. He took me out with his family and stuff the other night. And he says he can't stand these Trump people. And he asked one of his friends that's just a big Trump guy, he's a lawyer, and he says, why are you such a Trump fan? And he goes, man, because Trump was John Wayne. He just came in with all guns blazing and he was going to right the wrong. I was like, that's interesting.
All about movies.
It is. It is. Easily relatable. You know, we have to pick. Like we were talking about this before we went on air. Toussaint and I were going to go. Originally, we were supposed to go on a lot earlier. I will take the blame for that. I'll not say why. I'll just take the blame for that. I do feel bad because Toussaint woke up early, and if you knew Toussaint, it is like waking up a teenager. So
He did. These days it is. Yeah.
So, we were talking about one of the shows we did recently with Matt Huber, where Gene interviewed Huber, and the show view-wise is like doing okay. And I cut a clip from it, which is doing kind of average for the clips that we do, but the comments on it are a lot more than usually we have on the show with that little bit of views. And mostly because I think the views on the topic are so polarizing, and it's about the word degrowth, and people want to stand on one side of the other. And I don't really have that firm of an opinion. But it is interesting to see how people choose a side so quickly. And that's just it. If you say anything to the contrary of what you're getting from one side, then, you know, this is the bad person because they're not agreeing with the thing that I'm all about. And it's like, well, this seems to be more of a nuanced conversation than people want to have. And once you don't say you're on team degrowth, or if you say you are on team degrowth, then people just come with the smackdown. It's been very interesting to watch. You know, because I think that's one of the few things that we did kind of a both sides ish shows on. We had a mildly pro nuclear show with Huber, and then we had kind of a more anti-nuclear show with, what was the gentleman's name?
Scott Parkin.
Scott Parkin. And
Sparky.
It was interesting. You know, those comments sections on both those shows really blew up, and you saw how polarizing these discussions were. And it's it's interesting to me for a couple reasons. It's like, well, either way, none of us have any power on how this is going to work.
That's right.
And the anger people have is like, you're angry about living in the land of make believe at this point. And it goes back to kind of the way we digest this stuff. And one of the things I wanted to do was actually show news people explaining how they create content. And as generic as something like content, a lot of this stuff is content creation for them. And one of the things that I discussed in the thing is the Scott Peterson case, for those that remember Scott Peterson. And with Peterson, it was a slow news day after Christmas. There was a story of a missing woman in a nearby area, probably about 3 hours south of where we're from in the Bay Area. And it took a life of its own. And in this documentary that A&E aired probably 3 years ago, the news people on it literally talk about how they were feeding certain kinds of information to the public, and they were feeding it in a certain way that would cause controversy. And the first clip of this documentary, they go, if you were actually in the trial, you saw something different than what we reported. That's whoa. You guys are literally saying that you're just giving people, like, we fed you what you wanted, and what you wanted was drama, so we just fed you the drama. We learned from OJ. We learned from these big trials what people want to see, and we saw the money that those big trials generated. We were all looking for that. Oh, sorry about that. Are you good, MT?
Yes.
Okay. And because of the way their reporting was and the way the jury was picked, the jury was literally kicking off members of the jury that would be like, hey, I think maybe this guy didn't do it. The other members would get together and kick those people off the jury. It's an interesting case. You know, I'm not saying, and I don't draw a conclusion in the movie one way or the other that he's guilty or innocent, but it's just, if you knew some of the facts literally from the case that weren't reported on because it wouldn't have made for good news, you might have a different understanding of it. Do you have anything you want to add, MT? Because you were making so much noise fidgeting.
Sorry. No, I think that's really fascinating. I think, as a person who's not on a jury, you can guess that the jury is privy to things that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't guess that it was enough to sway a whole case. You wouldn't think that the media is changing the story that much. There's still a bit of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Just the
There's
facts, man.
there's tons of trust in the people that read you the news. The idea that Dan Rather is a journalist, the idea that, all these people are journalists, really kind of change. It also changes the relationship you have with media. And then that's also a part of the Kayfabe movie as well. A big part of it is not just the rise of cable news, but the rise of news programming like 60 Minutes. Like 60 Minutes is a game changer because 60 Minutes is the first news show that is an evergreen news show. It's talking about like celebrity gossip, true crime stuff. And it can be ran cheaply, or should I say cost effectively. And it took a while for them to, get their stride and figure out how to like work it. And you can run reruns on it. The big downside to news, unlike most other programming, is you can't really run reruns on news. But one thing you can run reruns on is news shows, especially those that cover true crime stories. So 60 Minutes, 2020, Dateline, all these things are like birthed out of the fact that the original owners of the big three networks sold to much larger multinational corporations. Those corporations no longer wanted to see news as a loss leader. And by the time you get Ted Turner, who's taking a massive leap by saying, I think this thing that historically has not been that profitable, I can make 24 hours and make it profitable. And it takes him about 10 years before he really can do that. And his big thing is, of course, the first Iraq invasion, which is massive for CNN. And then OJ blows it out of the water after that. And someone was saying Scott Peterson is during the rise of 24-hour news cycle. I mean, the 24-hour news cycle had been 20 years in existence at that time. So no, that's not necessarily the rise of it, but it's the rise of certain personalities within that 24-hour news cycle, like Nancy Grace, who I'm not a fan of. I think she's kind of a horrible individual, and her style of reporting, in my opinion, speaks to a lot of even the stuff we see here in these small left circles, mimics Nancy Grace. watch Nancy Grace and then watch a wrestling promo.
Mm.
There really isn't much difference. And I think that becomes part of the problem, especially in cases like these. This was like tailor-made for that viewpoint. And after a while, if you watch people like Nancy Grace, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, you know, we had to watch our fair share of Nancy Grace for this movie. Every story becomes a Scott Peterson story where there's an ultimate evil and an ultimate innocence. And, you know, it's hard for us to think beyond these things because, you know, of white knight syndrome. I don't know how you feel about white knight syndrome, Tucson.
Could you define it for me?
Seeing trouble and having to save someone. I mean, we definitely see it in online circles, right? And it does happen in real life. I mean, the murder of Jordan Neely is white knight syndrome, right? We're always on camera, and now we can be shown doing the right thing, quote unquote, the right thing. And the right thing is saving the day. But these day-saving things are all temporary. Life isn't a fucking movie.
Are you sure?
As I changed my background on social media to Charles Bronson. Yeah, life isn't always a movie. I'll give you an example. So Jordan Neely, that's what, 3 months ago? What happens?
Wow, 3 months. Yeah, sounds right.
3 months ago, right? That happens where a gentleman that knows some mixed martial arts, when everyone's recording someone having a bad day, that's what we call it. We call it having a bad day. That, to me, that's the best way to put it. I know people that don't work in services might not want to call it having a bad day, but when you work in services, that means when things get escalated where you might need help, so-and-so is having a bad day. All of us are on alert when you say so-and-so is having a bad day, right? We know that we might have to intervene. We might have to call the police. You know, there's something we're going to have to do that's going to make everyone's day a bad day. And he was having a bad day. And people did what they do now when cats have bad days. They record it. Homie steps in. White knight saves the day. You are gotta sit still, Tucson.
I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ. Are you getting dressed?
No.
Is your microphone getting dressed?
It's the microphone hitting against.
Getting dressed?
Yes, it is.
Jesus. But as I was saying, and the gentleman comes in, puts dude in a chokehold for far too long, and he's got help. He's not doing it all alone, and kills him on camera. Another snuff film. After he kills him, there's some people that say it's justified. There's some people that say, you know, he killed a black person because he's racist. Your city explodes, right? Just recently, a white dude that had pretty extensive mixed martial arts training saw a man fighting with his girlfriend. They were both homeless. I can't remember what city they were in. And he saw the man soccer kick his girlfriend in the head. He had knocked her out, then soccer kicked her in the head, and then stomped on her head. The dude came, punched the guy, got on the ground, and then got position on him. And then people are recording it because, again, right, that's what people do, record these things. And he told someone to call the police. They're calling the police, and he's holding the guy until the police come. And the guy's like, I can't breathe. And he's literally telling him how to breathe. He's letting him up. But he does have the guy in position. to keep him restrained.
Mhm.
And he grabs a guy's face in front of the camera, and the guy's like kind of out of it because he had choked him out at one point. And he's like, grabs the guy's face, and he's like, "Look, this is a woman beater right here. I got a woman beater." He's like making his mouth, "I'm a woman beater. I'm a woman beater."
Oh.
It's pretty fucked up. Cops end up coming. He gets off. The guy gets arrested. You know, I don't know what's up with the guy. I'm sure he's out. And a guy that I know that breaks down fight film had actually put that on his channel, and he got some people, you know, arguing on his channel, is this racist, is it not? And he definitely argued that it wasn't necessarily racist. And, you know,
Is that the question? Is this racist?
is this racist? Is this right? Is this necessary? Like, my whole thing is, you stopped everything that day and you patted yourself on the back, and the internet told you were a hero. Another half of the internet probably calls you a piece of crap. But ultimately, there's probably more people. You're probably on the good side of the internet for being a hero. But what did you really do for everyone in that situation? You
Right.
literally did nothing. It's not like that relationship is severed now. As someone that had to break up those situations in real life without beating the shit out of people, you really don't have to. You'd be surprised, but you don't have to do. There's really nothing you did other than you stopped somebody from getting stomped on, which is cool. Did you have to do everything you did? I don't know. I wasn't there, so I can't answer that question. I would actually side on the maybe you did need to, you know, get into that much of a physical altercation with dude and actually incapacitate him until, you know, someone came. And I don't really know what the average citizen wants to do, but there's something about when these situations are put online and these people are put into new categories of heroes.
Mm-hmm.
We need more people like this. It's like, I don't know if we need more people beating up homeless people. Like, the people were homeless. I don't know if John Q. Citizen beating up a homeless guy is the answer.
It's a victimless crime, like punching a guy in the dark. Or not.
Or not. But how is that story going to get portrayed in the media? And I think it's going to get portrayed one main way. And it's going to get portrayed because it was a white guy with a black guy, and the white guy does mock this black guy. And that's the only part of the video that you're ever really going to see, is the part where he's got him and the black guy's going, "I can't breathe." And he's going, "Oh, just relax. And as your body relaxes, you'll be able to breathe." And he's holding position on the guy where he actually can breathe. But the mocking of him,
Yeah,
is a bridge too far. And you can say, well, he's full of adrenaline, yada, yada, yada. It's like, yeah, maybe that's why you don't need to intervene in those situations. Because literally,
sure.
what did you do to make that woman's life better? You just stopped that situation one time. Unless you want to follow her for the rest of her life, which
Yeah.
you're not going to do. Unless you're going to try to help them get housing, counseling for dealing with being a victim of violence, for both of them. You're going to help them get job placement. I don't know if I would feel good patting myself on the back because I whooped some homeless guy's ass that was in no position to, like, you know.
Well, don't you feel that homeless people are othered to the point where it's like zombies and you can do whatever you want?
That's the new language, right?
Yeah.
If gang members were the terror of the 90s, then it's the homeless zombie. There was a song we never released called "They're All Zombies" when I was in LaFin, and it was kind of about the people that were outside of our door. It was definitely like being in Night of the Living Dead sometimes with the actions that you saw, especially like, you know, eating each other to pieces. And you're going to see horrible shit within those communities. There's a glorification sometimes in left circles of unhoused people that it's like, come on, man, they're just people and there's going to be bad shit in the community. You can't act like everybody is a fucking wonderful citizen. Like, that's okay. Just
Right.
because they're not fucking wonderful people doesn't mean that we can't help them. But there's that side of everybody, regardless of the iconography that surrounds who you think you are. That's all about vengeance. You have a little bit of that Charles Bronson in you where you want to exact revenge. When that guy saw that woman getting attacked, I'm sure he just wanted to stop her from getting stomped. I mean, he didn't know what was going to happen,
Right.
in all fairness. But also, you don't really know what you're dealing with. You don't know if the dude that you're going to tackle has needles on him, a gun, a knife. Even if you get position and you're wrestling on the ground, what if you got stabbed with a Hep needle or an AIDS needle or an HIV needle?
Exactly.
And you didn't really help anybody other than that, like 5 minutes. You know, the whole job is to try to get people out of not just the immediate circumstance, but just the environment that causes all that pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But the white knight kind of doesn't care about the bigger issue. So, and you know, we love showing white knights on the news.
Well, they figure part of the situation is clear,
Mm-hmm.
and clearly I would be the good guy if I did this thing and
Mm-hmm.
intervened in this one part of it, but not considering the whole situation or the situation happening again in their absence.
Mm-hmm.
But it's irresistible. There are people who are dying to be white knights.
Dying to be white knights. And you know, do you start looking for trouble at a certain point? I can't answer that question. Again, I don't think that guy looked for trouble.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of situations where people have stopped, you know, sexual assaults. You know, so I get it. There's just something about the way these things are reported that gets under my skin. Especially when the media gets the perfect situation of white person, black victim. Like white knight, black victim. It's like, ooh. The whole newsroom is just like,
Would you care to explain what you just did
I
to our audio
did like a
listeners?
big, like for the audio listeners, everyone gets a huge just rager, regardless of gender. It's a throbbing rager whenever they see that, because that's endless content for all of the news pundits. I don't care who you are, and you can make it whatever you want to make it. If you're a CNN, MSNBC black person, you can talk about the scourge of American racism that is baked into this country like apple pie. If you are a right-wing conservative Second Amendment person, you can be like, this is the problem with liberal cities and lax laws on criminals. They're beating their girlfriends in the street. If it wasn't for this man, you know, we'd have another dead woman. Someone says, "What about the media coverage of the Montgomery brawl, Jason?" You want to talk about like getting under my skin? That Montgomery brawl is like, I haven't felt this bad for black folks since OJ. The fact that so many people are acting like they got their freedom papers with the freaking folding chair is kayfabe personified. The reason why wrestling uses like folding chairs is because when you hit people with them, they open. So the impact isn't as bad. You have to hit people a certain way with a folding chair. And generally, you don't really want to fight with a folding chair unless you're Jackie Chan filming a movie or a pro wrestler. It's really not a smart weapon to fight with. And if you watch that fight, the woman that's on the ground that gets hit with the folding chair first had already got knocked out, the white lady. She was already out. Some black woman socked her in the chin. Dunzo. That dude ran across the place and mollywops her on the head with that folding chair. I couldn't tell if he got it with the open side or the closed side. Because if you hit someone with the closed side, it's going to hurt a lot more. That guy that hit that woman just got arrested. If you haven't been following the case, he's the first black person to get arrested. Probably the only one because he hit a few people with chairs.
Could you read this comment that's on the screen for us?
We could all be reading a book right now from my good friend. I'll be doing a show with tomorrow, Ben Burgess. Yeah, which I will be doing later. I'll be reading Freddie DeBoer's book. I'm going on at Ben's show to talk about Freddie DeBoer's new book. But that's kind of how I felt about watching that whole brawl. And Toussaint and I, we talked a little bit about it in the champagne room. I did not want to waste a show about it. If Pascal was here, he would really go off. That made him probably a little more angrier than even me. I just kind of rolled my eyes. But he was like very like he was vocal about his disdain. Very vocal about his disdain on how everybody was acting like this was some great achievement. When, that man is gonna, you might see some real time.
Right.
That's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But I haven't seen too much news coverage of it other than the news coverage I've seen almost treats it like, and today in downtown San Diego, a squirrel was racing a boat. It's kind of like one of those wacky things where
it's a wacky music.
Yeah. That's almost how I feel that people are reporting the story, because it looked and felt like a scene from a Leslie Nielsen movie. It didn't feel like real almost, because situations like that look like, bar fights I've seen, or especially working in North Dakota. So I was like, oh, that's a news story. But the guy swimming across the river kind of, you go, okay, well, the swimming guy, really. And the one meme where they make it look like Endgame Avengers coming through the portal. The black people coming through the portal from Doctor Strange is kind of funny. But what's not funny is, real motherfuckers got hurt. We don't even know how bad people really got hurt. And we don't know what kind of time people are going to do. We don't know if the judge is going to throw the book at these people. Remember, this shit happened in Alabama. It's not like Alabama has a history of being very forgiving for certain types of crime.
Right.
And it's not like Alabama, and it happened in Montgomery. You don't necessarily want people to think it's cool that these racial fights are going on in their city, in their state. Not something they're really proud about. Someone says that hat toss was legit cool. I didn't get the hat toss. I didn't understand it. and I thought it was silly. And he ended up getting punched after he threw. Like when you watch it, it's not like he tossed the hat and knocked the guy out. And he threw his hat, and then the dude just hit him. But it looked like a pro wrestling fight, and as I'm getting ready to finish this project, and that happened, I was like, will it make it in? That's the scary part. You're watching, you're like, should we use this footage?
Should we use this chair?
Oh God, yeah, all the chair memes. I think it's died down now. I think people are tired of seeing it.
Because it exploded. It exploded.
I mean, how did you feel about it?
I am still kind of out of it. Like, I watched it from the news point of view. I saw some of the footage, and I don't really get why it was such a huge deal for so many people. I think the solidarity thing was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
People like the idea of seeing a black man get beat up by white people and then other black people rushing to his rescue. Enough to swim. The swimming guy, nothing beats the swimming guy, I think. He was ready to go.
The swimming guy is kind of funny, but it's kind of like, well, hang out in a county jail for 5 seconds. Or is it different there?
It's different.
So I'm like, well, not that kind of solidarity. It's like, no, okay. You know what? Go to an urban high school at lunchtime. You see the same thing?
I think people are starved for solidarity
Why?
because we're atomized.
But we see it every day.
Well, people don't notice.
It's literally something you can experience.
It's something you can partake in. It's something
Yeah,
that
it's not.
you can initiate too.
It is not mythical. Speaking of solidarity, shout out to friend of show, Gloria La Riva, presidential candidate for the PSL party and friend of mine. It is her birthday today.
Would you like to tell people what we're doing here today?
Yes, today we're doing a special stream to raise funds for the movie that we're talking about, Kayfabe. It is a feature-length video essay documentary about the way we consume media. We discuss the rise of cable news, or mainstream media as we call it today. Juxtapose that to the rise of pro wrestling on the national stage with the rise of WWF, later what's to be known as WWE. And I take kind of deep dives into wrestling history, talking about the rise of Vince McMahon, how I think Donald Trump learns how to be Donald Trump really by hanging out with Vince McMahon. They have similar stories. They both had rich fathers that they wanted to be like, and McMahon maybe succeeds more than Donald Trump does, even though Trump becomes president. But the way he becomes president, I don't know if his dad would have. They had an interesting relationship, those two. But to give people kind of context about how massive of a personality Donald Trump has been in the zeitgeist of public opinion for the last 40 years. His daughter, he has with his second wife. That divorce was the biggest news story of the year. There were like world events happening during that time that were covered less than Donald Trump's divorce.
Marla Maples, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Second daughter is Tiffany. This is the daughter no one cares about.
Well, her name
Inc-
was Tiffany. That means, it's not.
including Donald.
The name is trouble. Heather Heyer's death anniversary was this week. I actually saw something about it. That was tragic.
Hmm.
That was tragic.
Talk about solidarity.
Hmm. That was scary too.
Very.
Those people came armed.
And there's plenty of precedent now for just running over protesters.
That's what we're seeing with a lot of these laws. I've been saying this since January 6th, that the backlash of January 6th is just protest in general. And January 6th is a scary time. And if you look at January 6th as simply the attempted coup, I get it. And I get where that fear comes from. I think that's a righteous fear. But there were already laws in place to handle that kind of shit. What January 6th did was give law enforcement at all permission to shoot people on sight, to run over protesters, because we can't have another January 6th, right?
Hmm.
And for kind of proof to that point, in San Francisco, and I think I mentioned this on the show not too long ago, I'll mention it again. There's always new listeners. There's this annual, it's called Bombing Down a Hill. So it's like, if you're riding your skateboard or your bike, generally a skateboard, and San Francisco, if you've never been there, has the steepest and most ridiculous hills known to man. They're just ridiculous. It's a city that's 7 square miles, and I feel like 5 of those square miles is just stupid hills. But if you walk them, you will feel like you just it's your workout for the day. Anyway, so these kids, I forget which hill they bombed down. I think it's somewhere in the Mission District. But these kids, it's an annual thing. Bunch of skateboarders, little kids too, on little scooters. It's pretty innocent. They make sure that all the intersections are blocked off.
Hmm.
They just bomb down this massive hill. They're probably going like 40, 50 miles an hour on a skateboard, insane speeds. And someone called the police. The cops show up and a riot breaks out. Horrible riot. I don't think anyone died, but there was a lot of damage. It was totally unnecessary. These kids had no intention on fucking anything up. They just wanted to bomb down the hill and have a little party afterwards, like they've been doing forever. News reports on it like, the kid, look at this. The kids went down the hill. Never a big deal. Melee breaks out. Cops start beating the shit out of the kids. And now, now they're going, the parents now of the smaller children that were witnessing, seeing these older kids that were helping them get down the hill, teaching them tricks and stuff. They're seeing these older kids get the crap beat out of them by the police. And now all these parents are getting involved, and all the citizens are mad at the police. And the cops are kind of saying, well, remember you guys got all mad about January 6th? Remember you guys get all mad about the homeless guy defecating in your front yard? Well, if you want us to keep showing up to those things, you better shut the hell up about this. So it's a bunch of people got arrested for inciting a riot.
Inciting a riot.
Oh yeah. I watched it and I just shook my head and I was like, this is the fallout. This is what it looks like. It doesn't look like a BLM protest. It looks like a bunch of kids skateboarding down a hill, having a good time, getting their head kicked in by the police. Because now you're inciting a riot.
We have an important question.
Mm-hmm.
from Dig Dug.
Yeah.
What is kayfabe?
Dun, dun, dun. It's an old vaudeville term that's definitely used in wrestling, where you don't let the public know that it's a bit. So wrestler's job is to protect kayfabe. So, for example, a bad guy in wrestling is known as a heel, and a good guy in wrestling is known as a babyface. So you don't want to be, if you're showing up in like Nassau Coliseum to do a big show, you don't want to be seen at the Nassau Denny's, the bad guy and the good guy hanging out. You don't want people to see you riding around. You want to keep the illusion, even though everyone knows it's all fake. You still have to keep the illusion up. When the guy goes off the top rope and hits the mat harder than he hits the guy, it's protecting kayfabe. But kayfabe gets complicated in the 90s because wrestling does this thing where they kind of let you see a little bit of how the sausage is made. But in doing that, they still are protecting kayfabe, which is really where the impetus to make this feature length comes from. And it comes from a wrestling incident that's very famous called the Montreal Screwjob. And the Montreal Screwjob is a moment where a wrestler named Bret Hart was a champion, and he was trying to renegotiate his contract with, I think it was still called the WWF at the time. It might have been the W. Let's just call it WWE. We don't want to get mixed up in names. And so Bret Hart can't get the money because WWF is just kind of hemorrhaging money at this point, because now they have major competition and another wrestling promotion called the WCW, who's taking older WWF stars, and they're actually writing different storylines. WWF forever was kind of writing Cold War storylines. They were selling to a much younger market with their toys. They had a cartoon for a few seasons, Wrestling Superstars. So wrestlers had definitive roles, right? Especially after the cartoon. So people like me grew up knowing Hulk Hogan is the ultimate good, Rowdy Piper is the ultimate bad. And WCW comes on, and they start doing kind of more anti-hero storylines, more reality show type storylines. They're a little bit of a sexier program. So Bret Hart is leaving, and Bret Hart's a longtime wrestler from a wrestling family, and he's going to go to the WCW. And usually when you leave, you have to do something called bring another wrestler over. And apparently Bret Hart was supposed to bring over a wrestler named Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart did not get along. Don't know how true that is, because again, protecting kayfabe for some of these older wrestlers is like next level. Bret Hart, again, who's from a wrestling family, has a brother that wrestled too, who passed away, named Owen Hart. Owen and Bret had a storyline where they were fighting, and they kept so true to kayfabe that their mom thought that they really were beefing for 4 months before they finally broke and told their mom that it was a bit. That's next level. So anyway, Bret Hart tells Vince McMahon, because remember, you don't win these titles, you're chosen because the wrestling promotion CEO says, I think wrestler X is a massive draw, and wrestler X is going to bring us, big dollars at the gate and TV. And so Bret Hart's going to leave. He doesn't want to bring Shawn Michaels over, and he tells Vince McMahon, we'll call the match a draw, and when I go to WCW, have a press conference, you go give Shawn Michaels the belt, but I'm not going to lose to this guy because fuck that guy. So Vince McMahon doesn't want to do that. He gets in a writer's room, and now in the writer's room are people that actually wrote on reality television. Allegedly, they're trying to find a way to do this that's going to make Shawn Michaels happy and Bret Hart happy, but also not hurt the viewing audience. So they say, we'll do a screw job. which means one wrestler isn't in on it, and Brett will lose the belt on a surprise 3 count. Once Shawn Michaels puts Bret Michaels in his move, the sharpshooter, we'll get a quick 3 count because everything is choreographed. The referee knows, okay, the first time Shawn Michaels puts Bret in the move, you're going to give him that 2.5 count. Bret will get out of it. The wrestler, it's so there's some ballet to this stuff that people don't like to admit. So anyway, Shawn Michaels puts Bret Hart into the sharpshooter, and the referee does a quick 3 count. Bret Hart is in shock that he lost because he's not supposed to lose to Shawn Michaels. That was the agreement. And he loses his shit. A camera pulls tight on Bret Hart, and he writes WCW. Vince McMahon runs out, and the camera pulls tight on Vince McMahon yelling at Bret Hart from side of the ring. And Bret Hart spits on Vince McMahon, literally spits. He says loogie, this huge loogie on Vince McMahon's face. The Montreal Screwjob. Is it real? The next day, both those guys do something that's kind of unheard of in the wrestling world because they have their own wrestling shows. They go to sports television and talk about the screw job. Vince McMahon at this point isn't the owner of WWF. He's a ringside announcer to most people, even though he had owned the league since 84. He bought it from his dad in like 84. Most people thought he was an announcer. So you're drawing in fans because you're letting people see to a certain degree how the sausage is made, but it's all BS. To this day, that was like 30 years ago. To this day, people still debate what really happened. The guy that's the referee gets death threats. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels still talk about it as if neither one of them knew what was going to happen. Allegedly, Bret Hart punched Shawn Michaels after the fight. He punches Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon had a black eye when he did interviews. Do I think Vince McMahon would go to the nth degree? Yes, because it paid massive dividends for him. Bret Hart didn't last long at WCW. WCW didn't last long. Wrestling in general goes into what's called the Attitude Era soon after this, filled with anti-heroes. You get the rise of people like Steve Austin and The Rock. It changes a little bit. And television, news, everything in general starts to show you a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff to really pull you in. And the best juxtaposition for the Montreal Screwjob that I had in the film is the rise of shows like Jerry Springer and Maury Povich. These are guys that were struggling to get ratings because everyone was supposed to be Oprah or Phil. And after Geraldo kind of becomes a joke, Jerry Springer's the first guy that can take all of the legitimacy away from a Geraldo Rivera type show. Because remember, Geraldo Rivera is a legitimate journalist. This is the lawyer for the young lords. This is the guy that breaks the mental health hospital that was, if you've ever seen American Horror Story, the second season, at the end of the second season, they literally replay a Geraldo Rivera news show scene for scene. The kids are covered in feces, where he snuck in to a mental facility in upstate New York and got it closed down. He was a legitimate journalist at one point in his life. Jerry Springer wrote a check to a prostitute while he was the mayor of Cincinnati. And that's why he's famous, right? So you can't be too serious when you're that guy. And his exploitation, even of poor people, really played well with underclass ideology that's so popular at the time, especially with Clinton in the White House. But one thing these shows are doing is when people, you are not the father, what was the first thing the women would do? They'd run to the back. Maury Povich would follow them. He'd have the, hey, we'll bring another guy in. Don't worry, don't cry. You're seeing this seriousness. You're seeing what you're thinking is real. And more often than not, these people are just making stuff up to get on the show. You really think that woman came on the show 15 times and didn't know who the father was? Or do you think she made for good TV and they just didn't care? You're lying. You don't care if you're lying, lady. People just like to see this quote unquote white trash woman not know who her baby's father is for the 15th time. And then we're going to put you on stage where everybody's going to just shout insults at you for the last 10 minutes of the show. And that is reality television. It's not just the Real World and Survivor. It's also these talk shows. That is what we see as reality. You have something you'd like to add to, son?
Say what you will about Geraldo, but that dude's got a killer stash.
Steve says, I had a friend go on Jerry Springer, got paid $500. Exactly. It was never, after a while, they don't care. I've definitely known people go on those shows too, and there's like, you made up some crazy story.
So the other teenage daughters like you who were dressing too sexy, that was made up too?
Who knows? I mean, Cash Me Outside girl. Remember her?
Mm-hmm.
She has a name.
I think it's Bad Barbie, but I'm not sure.
I like Cash Me Outside. I think
Cash Me
that's
Outside
how
girl.
I want to remember her forever.
Forever.
How serious was she? Was she really going to fucking knock out Dr. Phil?
She will now.
Why?
There was a scandal. She got sent to one of those I hate my kid, they're too bad camps.
Mm-hmm.
And it was super abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Phil just has a habit of sending kids to these camps.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been speaking out about it. And she's got it out for Dr. Phil.
That's fair. I mean, that poor little girl has been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Since she said, "Cash me outside." Here you have a child that has a viral moment in a very vulnerable moment. I've been around my fair share of teenagers, being that you guys love making fun of all the kids that I have or haven't had, because nobody really knows.
No one knows.
Teenage girls can get kind of rough. And this little girl having a moment on national TV is uncomfortable. It's sad to use that moment for massive ratings. Dr. Phil will forever be the guy with the Cash Me Outside girl. No matter what he did in his life before that, nothing will top that. And what happens to her after that? The moment becomes viral. the vultures come and go, let's make her a rapper.
Yep.
Why not? She's like, I don't know how to rap. Doesn't matter. That acting that you did, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Don't you want to live this life? She got flown out to LA and she got the treatment that you get. You know, you go to the party and you see all the people that you dig. Oh, wow, look, there's Rihanna. Oh, wow, there's Snoop Dogg. Yeah, this is your life now. So just keep being, this is your rap name. This person's going to write the songs for you. We're going to have you record this day. We're going to have a film video. And, you know, the rest is history for her.
Pretty much.
There's nothing in her life. Like, she's going to have a hard time trying to figure out who she is forever. Because the world got to define who she was at a moment, at a rebellious moment in her adolescence. She's defined forever by that. That's why these people eat bullets when they turn 30 years old.
Hey. Hey.
Did it get too dark on that one?
A little crude. A little crude.
But no, it's you know, the I wouldn't say it's the part 2 to Kayfabe, but Toussaint definitely told me don't put it out beforehand. I was been jonesing to do something so much that I had started work on a script that actually Toussaint was helping me with. All those late night phone calls he definitely helped me with about ideas around authenticity. And I think that definitely dovetails into a lot of the news talk, because we're always looking for, you know, the capital T truth. Who is authentic? Who is really giving us what we want? What is the truth? And in the champagne room the other night, I thought it was funny that our guest said that we were playing video of this white guy that was doing what do you call it, dance hall? Would you call it dance hall?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what that is?
Is that what that is?
I don't.
He attempted dance hall.
It sounded like he got a head trauma. That's what it sounded like. But our guest Stephen DeCastro said this guy needs a Milli Vanilli. Like, I never thought anybody would actually say that. Like, this guy needs an avatar. He's just too white to be doing this dance hall. He literally needs an avatar.
That's so funny.
I thought that was hilarious.
This is a really, really smart conclusion.
Yeah, because we don't think about that. Would the millions of people that bought CNC Music Factory had bought CNC Music Factory, had the video shown, how old was Martha Wash when they're like 40 some years old, a 40 some year old heavy set Martha Wash, or a 20-year-old model in spandex dancing around with another shirtless, buff, you know, ponytailed rapper in spandex? You know, does it sell the same way? I don't know. What do you think, Toussaint?
I definitely think at a certain point after the story started to break, people got tired of the model
Mm-hmm.
and wanted Martha Wash. They were fine with it. They were just like, enough with the models already. If they're not doing anything, then don't give us the models.
I mean, Martha Wash also was part of like 3 number ones that year for like different groups from similar, I think from the same producers, but it's not like it led to her having a solo career.
Right.
And that's where I kind of always go, do you really care about authenticity? Like, Milli Vanilli released an album after the fact. A couple thousand people bought it, but they only pressed up a couple thousand copies because the record label went under. And the actual people that sang the song, did I ever tell you this? The people that sang the songs, called The Real Milli Vanilli, released a record after the scandal. Frank Farian, in typical Frank Farian fashion, because before Milli Vanilli, he does Boney M, who is just him doing vocals for men and women. The Real Milli Vanilli literally has one kind of younger guy in the group, and he's not singing in The Real Milli Vanilli. And that didn't sell. I think that barely charted. So do people really care about authenticity? Is the sum, when it comes to Milli Vanilli and CNC Music Factory and Seduction and Black Box, is it all just greater than its parts? I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again because I think it's such a great documentary that doesn't answer a lot of questions. And I think for me, that's like great documentary stuff where it doesn't give you the answers. You have to do some thinking on your own. And Dons of Disco is so good. When you see, there's this man that's been writing these songs in Italy. He records them. He tries to release them. He has a minor hit, but he doesn't have a really good stage presence. So the record label goes, we'll find a guy with a great stage presence and we'll have him sing the songs. They find a guy, great stage presence, great look, can't sing, can't even speak English. Also, side note, these songs are in English. Kind of Eurovision-y songs. And so for years, this avatar sings these songs. Or mimes these songs. His contract was as him as the mime. The guy that wrote them was the writer and the singer. And he got like 1% more than the mime. But because this was an Italian deal, that in Italy, the dude moved back to the United States. He stopped getting royalty checks after a certain point in time. The mime, the music kind of fell out of favor with European people after a while. And they had so many different people singing after the American went. And why is your voice higher on the second record? It's like, I had to take English lessons in the UK. And that's why I sound British. Just, but the mime ends up having a fall off. And then he had bad people handle his money for years. And he's left penniless. Mm-hmm. Both of these guys were never really friends. And both felt the other had a better life. So they both looked at each other as the villain. And what was interesting is the mime, his whole take on it was, I brought the songs to life. You're a pretty good singer. You write songs that are hits, obviously. But would they have hit the same way if I wasn't miming them? And again, the mime can point to the dude's career. Again, the guy wasn't ugly. He was an attractive man, still in great shape. He's in his latter 50s. They're both actually in great shape. And he had a mild hit, but the record label was like, it's okay. It's doing okay, but we're about to release the mime stuff in Germany, and we can't have your stuff sounding like him. We're just going to pull your shit because we think the mime is the way to go. So the mime can literally say, look, man, I made your mediocre music that was kind of popular. I made it bigger than Michael Jackson in Europe. He's got a room full of these gold and platinum records from various parts of the world. That's, you have to go,
That's an argument.
Again, I was talking about this the other day in the Champagne Room. Genius of Love, I think, is the song. Didn't it? dun, 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 Tom Tom Club. Dun,
Mhm.
dun, 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 dun. You know how it breaks down the bass line? Dun, 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 dun. The Tom Tom Club, if I'm not mistaken, is the bass player and the guitar player from the Talking Heads, are husband and wife. The woman, I can't think of her name for the life of me, did not play the bass line on the recording of that song. Her hands were so tired from recording the rest of that record. By the time they got around to Genius of Love, she knew how she wanted it to sound. She knew how it sounded in the rehearsals.
Mhm.
And they had a studio player that they knew. They brought him in. She hummed him the bass line, and he played it. He plays it differently than she plays it live. If you listen to it live, it sounds different. Does the song lose legitimacy because she didn't play it? I don't know.
Can
So
everybody just tell the truth?
she never lied.
She never lied, but she never told the truth.
I mean, do you want to know every player on every record? When I heard Beat It for the first time, I'll never forget. My parents were still married. It was that long ago. And my father goes, "That's Eddie Van Halen playing that guitar." People in the chat, who's playing the guitar and Beat It? Is it Eddie Van Halen? Anyone going to respond? Nobody knows. It's not Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen came in and played the solo.
Mm.
The guitar line was already recorded when he came in. The song was done.
He should have played that part. That's the
It-
memorable part.
That part was written by another guy. Written to the vocal line that Michael Jackson had. Michael Jackson used to hum a lot of the harmonies and vocal lines. So you see it says produced by Michael Jackson. Like he knew how he wanted the songs to go, but he didn't know how to play instruments. His brothers
Right.
did, of course, right? So when he had that vocal line about how he wanted the groove to go, the guitar player came in there and worked with it, and he wrote that line. Sick ass riff.
It really is.
The only riff that was down before he wrote that line was that's all Michael Jackson knew he wanted. And so he writes that vocal line or that guitar line.
Interesting.
Eddie Van Halen comes in and plays the solo after the song is recorded.
The part nobody remembers.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Eddie.
And that's one of the funnier stories to me in music history, where Quincy Jones calls Eddie Van Halen and says, "Hey, this is Quincy Jones." And Eddie Van Halen goes, "Hey, quit fucking calling me." And he hangs up the phone because he didn't think it was real.
Hey, this is Quincy Jones.
And he said, and so Quincy Jones keeps calling until finally Eddie Van Halen believes him. And then, of course, he goes down. The story is he literally just drove down with just his guitar, hears the song, and just rips the solo, and he's done.
That's cool.
And he says, he goes, "Oh, that guitar riff was already down." The people thought that he recorded all the guitar on that.
Mm-hmm.
But his friend recorded that riff.
Nice.
Who was in Toto. So I think that's how they got the contact to Eddie.
All right, I'll accept it now. Good job, Eddie.
But there's so many songs, that we think certain people wrote things and played things, and there's other people that played and wrote and sang and arranged. We might have given credit to certain producers when in reality all they were the person that goes, "I'll allow it." And we say that's what greatness is.
Greatness.
I don't have to do a lot of overseeing when Gene Bajlan says, I want to do a show with this professor. Is that
Right.
going to work with you? Oh, yeah, sure. A lot of times music production, especially in the 50s and 60s, looked the same way. Bring in these groups of musicians. These are the song ideas we have, and they'll arrange everything. You might even have had an arranger arranging everything that didn't get credit.
Wow.
Ken says the guest musician thing happened a lot, right? I've heard stories about Beatles, Zeppelin, and others. Oh yeah, it's less a guest musician thing, and just there was just house players in studios. There still is, but it was very different then. And the credit they didn't get, and that's also part of the authenticity thing that's coming out after Kayfabe. It'll be a lot shorter, but is they didn't want credit because they were older. They were jazz musicians. They didn't necessarily like rock and roll all that much, and they had a different kind of groove, which I think suited the music really well. And they felt they looked like nerds. And they're like, if you saw what the people looked like that were putting the music together that you loved, you probably wouldn't like the music. So, what does that say about the way we consume things if we found out that a non-cool person was actually behind the thing that we thought was the dopest thing alive? If the person that wrote Flashlight looked like Doug Lane, would we not enjoy Flashlight?
Doug Lane. That would definitely affect my enjoyment of Flashlight.
If you knew that Bootsy Collins, like there was a white guy that showed Bootsy the bass line.
First of all, who's your A&R? A mountain climber that plays an electric guitar?
Yeah, it is. What are you gonna do about it?
It is.
The one of the two things that blew my mind as I was doing research for the authenticity thing that kind of came out the back of finishing Kayfabe was reading articles with Darlene Love and her recounting Phil Spector telling her to sound more black.
Phil.
And then that leading me down the road of, I forget the names of these two white writers, two young Jewish kids that loved quote unquote black, when it's called black music. Now we'd call it rock and roll. Maybe we'd call it R&B now, but back then it was black music. They both enjoyed black music, and when they get to record the original version of Hound Dog, the woman singing it is it Rosetta Stone, Rosetta Thorpe, I forget her name.
Rosetta Stone. It ain't Stone. I know that.
They tell her that she doesn't sound black enough. So the recorded version you get is not the version that this black woman wanted to do. That wasn't the mood that she felt. That's why I love when I see these people do these videos. Punk rock is black music, and it's all goes back to this thing. And I'm like, all right, well, I got some bad news for you, Negro Joe. Like, you really think that the dead Kennedys were inspired by, Delta blues? Because they weren't. But, people put a lot of value on ideas around authenticity. But how does that affect the way you enjoy stuff? And how does that affect the way you also, digest facts? It's almost like, was it standpoint epistemology Pascal hates so much?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is real black music. I listen to real black music. Oh, interesting. I would think everything I do is black music. I guess not. Good to know.
Guess not. This is Doug Lane black music.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Like, I think it's funny that no one calls this a black show.
Oh, hmm,
I'm sure there's a black guy behind everything, but good to
hmm.
know. Thanks. But that authenticity around what you do. Do you have kente cloth and a strong messaging around uh, white supremacy and an acceptance of 1970s Black Power rhetoric and aesthetics? Do you scare me? Right. That's another thing that people don't like to talk about. But do you scare me?
Dilbert Hernandez says,
Mhm.
regarding the black punk rock thing,
Mhm.
Dean Blunt made an album called Black Metal, satirizing the labeling of traditionally white culture with blackness to valorize it.
I'd like to hear that record. I've never heard it.
Yeah.
Dave L says Zap, Roger, and Doug Lane. Like, how funny would that be if like Doug Lane was like the funkiest white dude on the planet?
I need to see it.
Back to like talking about funk and pockets and groove. People shit on yacht rock, and I notice there's a certain type of person that loves to shit on yacht rock, and it's usually like white cats that maybe that was their parents' music, and they look at it as, well, this is like rich white people pop music that I'm going to make fun of and play in this ironic way.
Mm-hmm.
And as a music fan, I listen to stuff like Steely Dan, and I'm like, that's some funky ass shit Steely Dan is playing.
It's true.
Toto? Whew. Hold the Line? I wish this wasn't the mainstream and we could play that song.
Peg.
Just so groovy, right?
Yeah.
But you don't think of those as like funky. But if you were to hang around Bootsy and George Clinton and James Brown and all these funk dudes, and you put that on, they would sit there and the same thing because it's hitting on the same way, and they're gonna go, this is funky. Those guys kind of die in the era of new wave and pretty boys because they're ugly, Doug Lane looking ass white dudes with mullets and fucking beer bellies and mustaches. Like, can you find a picture of Toto from like 1984 when Africa comes out?
Man.
Or Georgie Porgy? Find a picture of Toto during the Georgie Porgy era. Woof. That group, not pretty. Hugh, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you so much, Hugh. All of the super chats during this stream will be dedicated to Kayfabe. So if it's easier for you guys to super chat, go ahead and do that. We also have the QR code for you to scan. It's on the screen in the upper other way. Yeah. Your Australian left.
My Australian.
The upper left-hand corner of the screen is a QR code for you to scan in order to donate. There's also a link in the chat.
But do you feel, and I'll ask this question to the people watching the show, definitely please leave a comment later on the audio only. Please leave a comment on that as well. Do you feel that the way music is categorized changes the way you feel even about the music? Because when we say, okay, this is yacht, like I love joking about the black yacht rock. I'm not serious.
It's funny.
It's just funny. Because there's a nigga on a yacht somewhere right now going, body. and his kids at home going, "Body yada."
That's right.
It's all the same.
That's right. It
It is
is.
all the same. Body yada.
You really love that song.
This ain't what you want. Damn. Someone should mix that in. Instead of go body yada. If
Oh my
he does a
God.
remix like that, that will take that song to a whole nother level. It'll take it to Macarena levels of
Oh my
success.
gosh. Macarena.
He has to do that though. He's Bobby Caldwell. Shout out. Vancouver. I give you that applause because Bobby Caldwell a few years ago, no, maybe it was like last year, but it was before he died. All these people and the video existed for like 50 years. It's not like no one knew what Bobby Caldwell looked like. And it's not like you could look at Bobby Caldwell and think, oh, maybe he's mixed. No.
Maybe he's mixed.
Bobby Caldwell looks like everybody's PE teacher.
Oh.
And we all listened to What You Won't Do for Love on the radio.
Yeah.
That's how most of us discovered that. Maybe your parents played the record, but generally you heard that song on radio. I know I grew up listening on radio. I can't speak for Tucson.
I heard on the radio on the Quiet Storm.
Quiet. Oh, dude. Bobby Caldwell, Hall & Oates, Michael McDonald, Christopher Cross, Steely Dan.
Steely Dan.
Who else? Who else you want to throw in there? Toto. All those like funky ass white people, and definitely more Caldwell and Michael McDonald. But because you saw Michael McDonald so much with the Doobies and his solo career, because he was doing all those duets with Patti LaBelle and shit, you put a white face to that voice, and you're like, man, that's soulful white boy. Bobby Caldwell didn't do those duets. He didn't have those hits with Kenny Loggins.
Nope.
This is it. And so no one knew what he looked like. He was still doing live. That was so funny is he was still live. It's not like he stopped playing shows for 50 years. He was pretty much playing up until he passed away. But people just, their brains exploded when they found out that he was white almost.
It was successive waves of discovery. It's just people were constantly discovering that this man was white for years
For
and
years. It's like,
years.
Ken, you and I both learned about the Doobie Brothers on What's Happening. When I learned about the Doobie Brothers on What's Happening, that was a game changer for me. Man, I thought the Doobie Brothers were superheroes.
Might as well be.
There was a Beatles tribute band they used to practice at the studio. Real cool dudes called the Sun Kings. Look them up. And sometimes Tyran, whatever his name is, from the Doobie Brothers would stand in and play bass. He played the Paul McCartney role. And somehow, I think I was playing the Doobie Brothers in the studio. And the dude that ran the Sun Kings was like, oh, you know, the homie from the Doobies. You know, you like the Doobies. He's going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be having a big rehearsal and yada, yada, yada. And the Sun Kings played some big shows. They're a pretty popular Beatles tribute band. And I didn't get starstruck that much working at a place where I always saw celebrities. But when I saw that man, Toussaint, I turned into like an 8-year-old. I was like, because he had the beard. He was bald, but he had the beard and everything. I was like,
8-year-old Jason.
oh yeah, dude. I couldn't even say anything. I ran out of the room like a little girl.
Yeah, boy.
I was like, oh. You know, rerun.
You know, rerun.
You stopped the bootlegger.
My God.
When rerun sneaks that massive tape recorder into his pants, blown away.
Glad we could help Lady Braga.
What happened?
Here.
I was in a bad mood, then I came here, and Jason and Tucson put me in a good mood. Aw, good,
Try.
good. Someone's talking about Fishbone. Fishbone is one of my favorite bands of all time. Fishbone, to me, is like this show. You can't figure out what it is, and you want it to sit in a certain category for you, and it won't, and it pisses you off.
Damn it. Damn this podcast. Damn this band.
Steve said, Jason be depressing me. Shit, Steve, hang out with me in real life. I'm even more depressing in real life. Totally depressed my date yesterday.
Virtuoso said, was Christopher Cross boss level yacht rock? Didn't Christopher Cross do sailing?
Fuck yeah. Christopher
That's-
Cross is the Arthur theme song.
That's boss
Arthur,
level
he
yacht.
does as he pleases. Shaka Khan has some yachty cuts.
What You Gonna Do For Me is a cover of Fleetwood Mac, isn't it?
I don't know.
Is it Fleetwood Mac? She covered Fleetwood Mac though at some point.
Is she? Shaka Khan is another funky drummer. You ever seen her play drums?
No.
She's a beast.
Get out of here.
Yeah, she's a beast. Beast.
Love
Crazy
it.
Pocket. Had. She passed away. Patrice Rushen. That's another one of my favorite artists. Patrice Rushen. You ever heard her jazz records?
Wait, Shaka Khan?
No, Patrice Rushen.
Before
I moved on.
because you
Shaka Khan-
said that she died.
Wait, didn't she die?
Shaka Khan? No.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I would know.
How would you know? Is that your auntie or something?
She kind of is.
How is she your auntie, lying
Kind
ass?
of is. I'm half Ados.
Side note, I totally love Ados Jason.
Ados Jason.
Shaka Khan is alive.
Mustache.
You're right. She's not dead. Who died?
Tina Marie.
Are you telling me that I confused Shaka Khan and Tina Marie?
Ooh, Tina Marie. Yes, you did. Tina Marie's my friend's favorite, and Shaka Khan is my favorite. So that's what they have. in
my
common.
brother.
Are you telling me that I confused Shaka Khan
Yeah.
with the king of white girl soul?
You just confused our favorites. That's all.
No, there's another black woman that passed away. Who passed away? You gotta look up dead black women.
Gosh.
Ken says Shaka Khan coming to Minnesota in a couple weeks. Well, it might be an episode of The Walking Dead, Ken. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, don't you dare say that about her.
Tina Turner. Thank you, Vancore. Tina Turner passed away. I am so sorry, Shaka Khan.
What's Tina Turner?
Shaka Khan, if you're one of the handful of people watching in this show right now, please know that I am not trying to put you in an early grave.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm never going to meet Shaka Khan now.
Nope.
Is this the nigga that tried to kill me off?
God.
I picture just having a fucking scarf and just flinging it past as she walks by, throws a drink on me like an angry black woman in a reality show.
God.
Sorry, Shaka Khan. And shout out to Tina Turner. Oh, I'm in the wrong bank. That was almost a bad thing to put on there. But her documentary, if you haven't had a chance, check out her documentary. The song "What's Love Got to Do with It" she did not write. It was written for her, and she didn't like it. She hated it. She goes, I don't want to do it. And so they had another group record it, and she goes, yeah, still hate it. So another
Thank you. It's
group.
a lovely recording. Still hate it.
Yeah. Someone says, Jason, you wearing them shorts? Tucson, am I wearing the shorts?
He's wearing the shorts.
Thank you. I am wearing the shorts. Tucson had to see. I had to show off.
Thank you for asking, Ken.
Thank
Now
you.
he's not going to stop.
No.
Brittany Houston? I think you're a little confused there. A little confused.
Steve says Shaka Khan's liver is dead at this point. Is she a drunk?
She might have been. I know she was doing harder stuff with like Billie Holiday, wasn't she?
You mean than or with?
With.
She's only 70. She's not 700.
Yeah, but wasn't there some overlap?
Billie Holiday ended her life broke. She was like a nanny towards the end of her life.
Yikes.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I can't answer that
Maybe.
question.
Maybe.
I wouldn't doubt it. I've hung out with my fair share of celebrities, so I can't say yay or nay.
I know that there was Lady Sings the Blues, so hopefully I'm not like confusing things. But
You
I
think
thought she
Diana
was,
Ross? You got her confused with Diana Ross?
but she wasn't doing drugs with Diana Ross.
She was doing drugs with Billie Holiday.
I think she was.
I mean,
I think the older girls were bad influences.
You were having a wild party then, because Billie Holiday did not F around at all.
Obituary stream.
Obituary.
Stop. Well, I'll say this about Tina Turner.
Mhm.
Tina Turner was in the same position as Cher, in that whenever she would sing a song, people would assume it was about her former relationship,
Mhm.
no matter how long ago it was.
Do you believe in love?
Do you believe in life after love? People still think Cher was singing about Sonny Bono,
Jesus. I mean,
even
she
though
looked
she had the bagel
Greg
guy.
Allman. She had
She
Greg Allman after that. She has a
She had
kid with Greg Allman.
lots of dudes, but people still imagine it's about Sonny. So with Tina, she must have known that people were going to assume the song was about Ike. But I mean,
She
it
didn't even
is what
write
it
it.
is.
Yeah, she didn't write
She
the
didn't even
song,
write it.
and she didn't want to do the song at all. And these other people recorded it. It's a dance song. It's a little more upbeat, and she made a bunch of concessions to the song. I think they had to slow it down first of all, and of course, she does the song, and her career skyrockets in her 40s.
Right.
Which I don't know. We're in a weird moment where I don't know if we would see that again. There's definitely people that are popular for longer periods of time in pop music.
Mhm.
Drake, Kanye, Taylor Swift, even, you know, Beyonce is still playing arenas.
Beyonce.
I mean,
Beyonce is another one who benefits from that formula where people assume all her songs are about Jay-Z and she encourages it. And Jay-Z encourages it too. And they make a lot of money off of that. I hate them.
You hate
Huh?
Beyonce and Jay-Z.
I don't know if you can tell. I just can't stand those two.
Well, but does that kind of play into what we've been talking about with Kayfabe? Like, you love the drama. Like, why do the whole thing made me ask this question? The ultimate question I'm asking is, why do we love wrestling? Why do we love the news? We understand wrestling is fake. We know nobody wins a title. It's predetermined. If you know politics is fake, Democrats lie, Republicans lie, politicians are trash. But why is everyone so in tune with the drama of news? Mitch McConnell shit himself. He had a stroke. Marjorie Taylor Greene said X. AOC did X. Why are we so engaged in the day-to-day minutia of this bullshit? But we always say it's bullshit.
I don't know, man. It's compelling. It's the real life drama of humans. You get to watch it play out from a safe distance, usually.
Bad luck.
Code Brown.
Code Brown. What show was that on when we did the Code Brown?
There was no Beyonce slander. No one slandered her.
Steve's saying in the chat that we slandered Beyonce. If anyone disagrees, then send us a comment saying that we slandered Beyonce. I have nothing bad to say about that woman.
I didn't say anything bad either. Ha.
Steve says F bootleg Basquiat, which is Jay-Z.
Bootleg Basquiat.
So thank you, Bad Lefty. The Bronco show. What did we call that show? We named it after his article. The Biden. Something about Biden. That's probably the only show that we have with Biden's name in the title.
Probably.
But go back and listen to that show. And we do our takedown of what really happened with Mitch McConnell.
Dun, 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 dun.
And we made a clip of that too. I think it says the TIR crew explains what happened to Mitch McConnell.
The real story.
Yeah, the real story. The real story. Get it here. Get it here first. We tell you the real. But is Beyonce black music personified?
No. Seriously? In a world where Shaka Khan exists, where Marvin Gaye existed, we're gonna go with Beyonce?
My only exposure to Beyonce was working the Coachella that broke crazy records that year.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to a festival so packed, and I work EDC, which has literally 50,000 more people in a smaller space, and it felt more packed at that Coachella. I had never seen people camp out in front of the stage for multiple days just to make sure they were there for Beyonce.
I mean, she puts on a show.
There was so many black people at Coachella that like, that was nuts, dude.
She puts on a damn show.
There was a 20% drop off in attendance the following year.
That's what she does.
She's
the Beyonce effect.
The Beyonce effect is real. I mean, there's a lot of things that factored into it. The year before, she was supposed to be there, and she backs out maybe like a few weeks before. And I think Gaga took her place. So she had a literal year of preparation.
Well, she had that special.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
With a friend of mine. She put a lot of work in.
Mm-hmm.
She puts on a show.
I mean, is she black music personified?
No. No. She works very, very hard because she should.
Are you saying you don't like her voice? Is that what you're saying?
Her voice is fine. There are aspects of her voice that I really enjoy. And I have paid for some of her music. But black music personified, like, that's a big legacy. Even Etta James was like, I don't want her singing my song.
Remember when Beyonce trying to sing At Last? I was like, I mean, yeah, I've been to karaoke bars too. That's how I felt about it.
Back in the days, the girls were catty. The
Mm.
girls were catty.
You remember when Beyonce tried to cover At Last? Well, she sang it in one of those movies. Was it Cadillac
Yeah.
Records?
Yep.
That's a very iconic song.
It is. People got married to that.
Really?
At last, yeah, that's a wedding song.
Oof. Etta James had an interesting life when it came to her relationships. I don't know if I need her singing my wedding song. Maybe that's why I've been divorced so much.
Will you stop it? I didn't say anything bad about Beyonce. Steve, keep talking bad about Beyonce MT, and I'm gonna get in my ADOS mode on you.
Etta called Beyonce a skinny bitch. I don't know anything about them. I know less about Etta James and Beyonce than I know about Melly Mel and Eminem.
The girls used to be catty back in the day.
Ken says Beyonce hasn't touched Diana Ross.
Ooh.
In what sense? In acting sense? I don't know. I don't know if I can say that.
Still hasn't touched Diana Ross. I'm Coming Out is still a phenomenal record.
What is Beyonce's I'm Coming Out? Does she have a
Say
song
Say
that
My Name.
is that a solo song or that's a Destiny Child song?
That's Destiny Child song.
Yeah. I mean, is that really because we think Diana Ross, we don't think of the Supremes.
That's true.
You know, you want to talk about authenticity and who rarely sang what. That's another thing. People, you don't want to hear the true story of that one.
I don't want to know
Who was singing what? But I don't know. I'm Coming Out also hits during the disco era, which I think hits at
hits.
The disco era is such a different time for quote unquote black music. Because black music and gay rights really are intersecting at a magical point, coupled with kind of free flowing cocaine use. It's just hitting.
Cocaine for everybody.
It's such a fucking magical time. Like Studio 54 can't really jump off without the Great Society programs that gives birth to this new burgeoning black middle class. And so what a cool intersection you get where you get this would you call it elevated funk is what disco is? Is that what you would call it, DMT?
Maybe. There is something higher about it.
I mean, we had Jeremiah McAllister on talking about it. And I think we're probably going to get into it a little bit on my birthday show this coming Saturday with Tammy. But funk having the magic of everything coming back and hitting on the one so hard, and disco being this 4 on the floor driving beat, but still kind of a maybe faster version of it. I think. I think disco is prog funk. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Is that fair? And it can't blow up without the help of the narcotic scene. Cocaine definitely helps because it is a massive stimulant, and disco becomes the soundtrack for this era of that stimulant.
I think now's a good time to stop and talk about Kayfabe a little bit more.
Okay.
The reason for the stream. Would you like to know your total right now and how many backers you have?
I don't know, but somebody said, I hate cocaine, but I love the smell.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God. Someone says, is Jason a Leo? I am. My birthday is August 19th, which is this Saturday. Friday?
Saturday.
Saturday, whatever day Toussaint says it is.
It's the 19th. It's a Saturday.
It is. So, yes, I'm afraid to know how many backers we have.
We have 59 backers now.
Oh, shit.
59 backers now. Would you like to know
Nigga, what?
our total right now as well?
I'm scared to hear it.
$2,987 USD.
Oh, snap. I want to do a drum roll, but I don't have
Drum roll.
I don't have drumsticks. I had to leave all the drumsticks behind. When I go back to the Bay Area, I'm going to get my amps.
That's a fantastic total.
We're almost at 3,000.
Almost at 3,000. Hell yeah. So let's talk about, you tell us about this QR code thing.
All right. Above my head.
Nope.
Shit, I keep using the wrong.
There we go.
You know why? Because it's messing with the actual thing. So right next to this tour laminate from a Godflesh tour that I was on, and next to my speaking pass when I spoke at Bath College. Look at that. Look at that. Just showing off is the QR code, which you can scan, and it directs you right to the fundraiser. There's also links in the chat. There's links in the description to the show. And there you can see the goodies that we have, anything from get your name on the credits to getting a digital copy of Kayfabe, because as we found out, I showed 4 minutes of Kayfabe on an episode we did with Jean Bajlan's brother, who is a pro wrestler in the UK, to kind of get people excited the day we launched it. I guess it was a month ago. We launched the Kayfabe fundraiser, and YouTube pulled it because WWE said we couldn't use some footage of the Iron Sheik that we had. And they pulled it. So we will not be putting it up on any platforms right away. What we are going to be doing is, if you donate, you can get a digital download. And if not, you can come to a screening. And I'm going to be on a screening tour. Of course, depending on what the donations look like, how long we could do it for. But definitely for the first few months, I'm going to be going out all over the US. And then I've been talking to people in various parts of the world about doing screenings in Australia, Germany. Definitely been talking to Alfie about doing a screening in the UK. So very excited to show it for people, then have these wonderful Q&As afterwards. I'd love to hear how you guys feel about it. One of the things that we'll be shooting while Alex Michel is down here doing the last edits with me is interviews actually with Alex and I. Maybe we'll get Ben down to kind of help conduct the interviews as well. But to have actually live in-person interviews, maybe do them. The weather should be good when Alex is here, and do them on the terrace, so it makes us look like super fancy. That'll be fun.
Thank you, Andrew. Got a super chat from Andrew. I can't wait to see the documentary.
I'm one of those people that once, like, the internet made it easy to release a record, I was always like, I got a song, I want you to hear it. When I first started doing this show, there's a reason why the show's on the audio, because it started as an audio only podcast, hit on the days they hit. The main show for this show is the Friday show, because when I started doing it, there was a day that we would air the shows, or I would air the shows, because a friend said you can't keep releasing a new show whenever you do an interview. If I did an interview at 9 a.m., the show was out at 11. If I did an interview at 2 in the morning because someone was overseas, the show came out at 2 in the morning. And a friend was like, no. You got to do it on a certain day. Keep them in the can. Don't do, you're running yourself ragged trying to talk to people every day and then releasing a show. So.
We have an important question here.
Mm-hmm.
From Ken Cohen's. So will you still make it if you don't hit the 8K?
Yeah. it's going to be a little harder. The
Yeah.
animations is was really the hard part.
I can imagine.
It changes some back end stuff, which is the real big deal. Trying to retain, here, let's open the door into really what goes on back here. When you do stuff like this, you have a couple routes you can go. You can make kind of a almost sizzle reel, longer form trailer to show investors and say, hey, would you want to invest in this? And I had done that. And there was some interest, but I would have had to give up a lot on the back end and not have been able to do what I wanted to do fully the way I wanted to do it, as far as going out in front of people, screening the movie, and documenting the screenings even, and having cool conversations with people afterwards about how they felt with everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's harder to do when someone says, well, we've invested so much money and we have to sell these things. And I was giving up pretty much. I would have been giving up everything just to get it done. So you can get it done. It's just going to be a little harder.
Who are you getting to do the animations? That sounds cool as fuck, says Andrew.
Right now, Quinn is on board to do the animations. If you've seen the trailer for Kayfabe, which we can play, YouTube for whatever reason passed the trailer, Quinn did the way the Kayfabe comes in and everything. There's other things that we've been working with him, because it's a lot of narration for me. Again, it's like over an hour of narration for me. So there's only so much footage we could get that made sense for a lot of it. And then adding this whole extra, I think I added like almost 2,000 words. We decided to go an interesting route to add what Quinn has the ability to do with like actually kind of animating real pictures and moving stuff around. And it's going to be real interesting how that's going to work out. And also I've been talking with Billy Bunton, who's actually an animator, about doing some fun animations as well. So almost like more, that'll be way more cartoony and fun.
Dilbert Hernandez wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to know about you incorporating the use of AI. If you can't get the funding, just chat GPT that shit. He also says Dolly the whole damn thing.
What does that mean? Like have a weird Salvador Dali thing and there's just like...
Dolly is another AI program for art.
No. I've seen some work that Quinn has put into some of the stuff, and it's pretty damn cool.
You can do chat GPT to write letters to people for like grants and stuff, I think.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, or to reach out for people for funding.
Again, everything kind of came at a price. And it was a price that I'm not willing to pay for this because this is kind of my baby. And this is the one thing that other people are involved in. And that's what makes it also hard. There's like other people involved in this.
We know you're precious with all 37 of your babies.
Exactly. And this is one that I like watching that first cut of it. I was like, dude, I fucking said that. Like I give everything to Gene to proofread, and I gave it to Gene to proofread, and he goes, "This is solid, man." He's like, "You're
nice.
Good. This is really good." He goes, "You're good."
Nice.
So even the Alex Michelle was like, "Damn, I didn't know that." Like that was finding shit out and putting it in there, and also giving him directing clips and the footage that he was able to find. The opening footage for the trailer, which is the footage of Ted Turner launching CNN, juxtaposed with Vince McMahon with the new name of WWF, because originally it was called WWWF.
which is kind of a lot,
Yeah.
kind of a mouthful.
Hey.
Virtuoso has a comment here.
Mm-hmm.
I donated. Please help out.
Please.
Thank you,
Virtuoso.
Virtuoso. Jinx.
I didn't. I wanted to do something. We talked with a guy a while back, or I talked with a guy a while back that made this great movie called The Pizza Massacre. The Pizzagate Massacre. Loved the movie. Thought it was super smart, super funny, very engaging movie. Reached out to the director. He came on the show. We had a great talk. I'm actually going to have him back on. I don't remember if we actually screened the Pizzagate Massacre. I think we screened it on a movie night. I don't remember off the top of my head. But in talking to him about how he did the movie, I think he had it because he's in Austin, so I think he did like an Alamo Drafthouse screening once. And you put it up on a service, and you just kind of hope for the best. And I just wanted to do something that was a little more real in the sense of I wanted to get back to people. To Toussaint's point about the atomization of everybody, I want to see if I can try to break through that by literally punk rocking the shit out of it and taking this movie. Sometimes I'll be with Ben, sometimes I'll be with the director, Alex. Maybe we'll even have Quinn with us sometimes, but generally it'll probably be just me in a room full of people, and just let's watch it together and let's talk about what we just saw. I'd love to get your hear what you guys think about, some conclusions I come to, how you guys feel about thinking about this stuff in a different light. Again, when you hear reporters talking literally about not deceiving, so to speak, but just you guys wanted the meat and we gave it to you. For me, it really messed my head up when I thought about, well, damn, how do people then consume this garbage? Because now we're just eating fast food. We're just forcing and we're calling it healthy. We're all supersizing it with a diet soda at this point. So how does that feel when you find out that everything you're eating and the diet soda isn't going to help out, or the pre-workout is just caffeine? How does that make you feel?
Right.
Because it definitely enraged me to a certain extent, and it made me want to back away from just even watching the news.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It's easier for me to read than to watch. And reading is also problematic as well, but we can come to our own conclusions. People don't need to tell it to us. Does this help? I don't know. Is it something that you can show your friend that loves CNN, MSNBC, Fox, the regular news, your parents? Yes. I literally made it so you can show it to your non-lefty Marxist friends and family members and go, let's check this out. Because I knew the wrestling angle was going to be engaging. And I think the Scott Peterson angle is even engaging, and the cable news rise is engaging. And I think all those things working together makes you go, oh. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe everybody tells me it sucks and go F myself. I don't know.
Lady Braga 77 says, this sounds cool. Please come to the DC, Be More, Wilmington, DE area.
Lady Braga, the last time I was in Wilmington, I think someone called me the N-word.
Oh no.
There was a club in Wilmington called, oh God, I remember it had a clown in it. There's a clown on the wall. I'm sure it's not a line. I don't think it's on the wall behind me. It was definitely when we were in LaFin. I think it was 2011 was the last time I was in Wilmington that I can remember. I've been in Delaware since, but not Wilmington. Maybe the airport. No, I went to the DC airport. But we were supposed to do a live thing in DC. And so there is a group of actually some really cool Marxist dudes led by Daniel Tutt out in the DC area that wanted to do some TIR stuff. So I've mentioned doing this with Daniel Tutt, and then Billy Bunton is in Baltimore. So definitely going to be in that area with this.
Bad Lefty has a suggestion. Have you spoke with Matt Bender? He's a big wrestling fan. No idea how or why, but may be able to help somehow.
I have not. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I didn't know Bender was a wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He is. He's also a punk music fan.
True.
I have not.
Lots of people to talk to. Lots of people to reach out to because it's a good project. People will want to get behind it.
Someone was asking if I'm going to celebrate Brianna Joy Gray's birthday.
Fellow Leos.
Her birthday is coming up. I forgot. Yeah. She never gets back to me, dude. Part of that is effing with her, and another part of that is very true. Brianna Joy never gets back to me. You know what? I'll say this on the regular stream. Brianna Joy went off on me and Pascal once on her call-in show. I don't think she's ever going to return any more messages from me. She went on a tirade.
And it's not necessarily because you did anything wrong.
No. I have to say, it was Pascal that antagonized her, first and foremost. I will point the finger at Negro Damas. As we all took the brunt of that. It was like, I just remember her yelling at me like, Jason, you know what I'm talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. You made all this shit up in your head. I have no idea what you're talking about. But she went off, and I don't think, I would be very surprised if she ever would reach out again.
Man.
Ever. Her sense of humor is not my sense of humor.
Okay. Jason has spoken.
Someone's mentioning OC making a big deal about the fact Brianna Joy is single. Brianna Joy is not single, by the way.
You gotta watch it with certain people, especially if they're attractive. Some people are never single.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Sam Cedar almost got canceled for saying Brianna Joy yelled at him. I mean, look, you could listen to the call in. If that's one of those things that gets erased or whatever, then I don't know what to tell you. There was hundreds of people listening because I was there answering questions for people that called in. And Pascal asked the wrong question. Set her off. You know, is she mad? No, I don't think. I don't think she stays mad because I have a picture on my refrigerator of her and Ben Burgess after she had went off on Ben Burgess on her Twitter. So, no, I don't think she stays mad. Jason got to show the booty shorts when fundraising.
That's right.
Did you take a screenshot when I showed you Tucson?
I didn't. I should have.
You should have, because I turned around for you so you could see the full. Can I show you guys on this? Can you see the?
Oh boy!
See all that leg that's exposed?
Good grief.
Someone was asking about print media. Oh, print media plays a role in this as well too.
For sure.
Again, the whole thing is about how we digest media in general. So print as well. I have issues reading the daily newspapers that I read. I think all of us at TIR probably read a few different newspapers. I think the rest of the guys more read the Times and the Post, whereas I read LA because it's more California news.
Yes, you do.
Um,
Paywall Pete over here. Oh, hey, you should read this California article that I came up with here. Once you get past the California and you're like, okay, fine.
I also read a lot of the Chronicle, and there's issues with journalism and all that stuff. We've had Randy Shaw on to talk about some issues that he had with the Chronicle and the way they reported certain issues with his facilities and why he won't even give an interview anymore until they print a retraction. So I understand. They all play their part. I don't know if print has the same sway that visual media has.
I want you to read this comment.
No vein. This is a kid's show.
Thank you.
So don't show the shorts. Gotcha.
This is funny.
The
Thug
Thug
Lane.
Lane stuff. I want the Thug Lane hashtag to go viral. I really wished more people would watch that clip of us messing with Doug Lane. Or was it just me? I think it was just me. It was a week you guys were all off. Me messing with Doug Lane doing that show, Are You a White Ally? Because I only wanted to do it once. And Toussaint's like, no, we can do it again.
We should definitely do it again.
I just don't know who to do it with.
Yeah, Doug is singularly hilarious in that respect.
The to the windows to the wall part was the best.
Oh yeah. I still need to watch it.
There's a clip up if you haven't seen it. It's called "Are You a White Ally?" It's in the champagne room of the UFOs show with Doug Lane, which a lot of people thought was like a contentious interview with Doug and I, which was that interview was the first time we had spoken in a couple months.
Wow.
But I end the clip with one of my favorite songs. So watch the clip just for the fact that I end it with that. And I've been messing around as I make clips, putting different things on the end of them to see if you guys are actually watching them to the end. Because my favorite comment to get is, where can I find the full interview? Because I end every clip with a screen and it says to see like the full video. Click there. It's like,
I know.
see more clips, click here. But yeah, I've been ending with, so the latest clip that'll drop Monday has an interesting ending too. And if you catch it, I want to see you guys comment on that. Like, what the hell is wrong with Jason? Why is he putting dancing ninjas in the end of every clip?
Dancing ninjas.
Oh, wait till you see it.
Oh,
wait till you see it.
Oh, Jason.
Oh, thank you, Charles. He says, best of luck to the TIR crew. You guys do really important work. Thanks for the education and the introduction to so many great voices. Have a great Sunday. Thank you so much. Sunday is a day that we don't usually do this.
Right.
I didn't think I was going to do this because I have to read, because Ben Burgess is like, can you help me with this Freddie DeBoer? Or he didn't ask help me, do I want to come on? So I think he just wants me to have a debate with Freddie DeBoer about why I think Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is better than DeBoer says it is.
Valid. It's a valid argument to have.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a time limit?
Of what?
Are we butting up against the
No,
hard out for you?
Ben isn't doing the show, and I don't have nobody loves me.
Somebody loves you. You passed 3,000.
What?
You did. You passed it.
Did you know it's Black Business Month at Nordstrom?
At Nordstrom. It
Yeah.
is Black Business Month. Somebody said, stop asking us for discounts. It's Black Business Month.
Stop. There was a show, I think it was yesterday. It was Souls of Mischief and the Far Side and the Alcoholics in LA.
Nice.
Is that not the most 90s hip hop show of all time?
That's so great.
Like, don't you wish that show happened in like 1995 and you were there for it?
Yeah.
I saw that lineup and I was like, that looks like the greatest lineup ever. And I so wanted to be a part of it, but I cannot leave Mexico right now. It would take me like 9 hours to get out of here. There's a massive music festival that has kept me from even going downtown.
All right.
Yeah. Steve says Black Business Month. When do they create that? George Floyd.
Is that right?
I don't know. I made that up.
No.
That
I
feels
think
like a
it
George
is
Floyd
before
month
that.
creation. They're burning down the buildings. What are we going to do? They're asking for reparations. What should we give them?
Capitalism.
A
is what
month
we
to
should give them.
celebrate big business.
Yep.
May they all eat Popeyes.
We have a TIR question here for you.
Mm-hmm. No. Is Chris Catrone the most controversial recurring guest? No. Norm Finkelstein. Is Chris Catrone controversial in the fact that Chris Catrone is like a troll? Sure. I think more controversial than Chris is probably Spencer.
I think Spencer's more controversial than Chris.
But they both do the same thing. They both are massive trolls. And they love poking people. I think Norm comes from a different perspective with his what kind of feels like trolling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the TIR rewind where we actually played the first show that Norm was on, that took like 3.5 hours, it was a show that we all thought, well, this was fun while it lasted. That would never happen with Chris Catrone or Spencer. They would never listen to someone like Angela speak. They would never listen to someone like Marcus speak and voice why they disagreed. So I don't know if he's controversial because you can watch a stream with me and Chris talk about Star Wars for 5 hours and science fiction movies and Transformers and how it relates to the world. I don't disagree with a lot of the stuff Chris says. I just think he has a way of putting it that is very antagonistic, but you can see that. You can see the smile in his face when he says some of those things. Norm is different. I don't think he's trying to piss people off. I think he's reached a certain age where there's a freedom of like not being afraid of online repercussions. He's not trying to do things for engagement's sake because he doesn't exist in this world that we exist in. So I think when we have Norm on, the comments are a little more. You know who we get a lot of mean shit. Paul, who's coming back next week, is Paul Prescott. One of the worst, best comments of all time. Somebody said, I can't even say everything that they said about Paul, but it was like the meanest, funniest thing we had ever heard. Paul saved the screenshot of it because he was so not even appalled. It was just shocking. They said he went to like the Uncle Ruckus school of something. of coonery or some shit like that. It was something real fucked up, but kind of funny. People get real mad at Paul. I've definitely got my share of go F yourselves. But Catrone, no. I'm really trying to rack my brain for who's the guest that it was like, I don't, you know, who's the guest that is hard to bring on or was hard to bring on, and now it's not as bad as Esperanza Fonseca, actually. That was one of the first shows where we got a lot of hate. Like, that was an uncomfortable amount of hate. And Esperanza is someone I know in real life. Like, I can go kick it with Esperanza. And I'm like, wow, people hate you a lot. Like, if you had a weapon on you, that'd be justified. It'd be a justified packing. There's definitely a fair share of comments with Adolf when he comes on. But as far as like controversial, getting a lot of angry comments, yeah, I don't think we've had the Norm show got a lot of weird right wing hell yes on some respects. The Catrone stuff doesn't really get a lot of polarizing commentary. I think people get more upset in the chat than in the comments. And I'm not on every Catrone show, and I'm not on every Spencer show, and I'm okay with that. But that's a really good question. Like, I really wish we could have aired some of the shows we did for the real news on this channel. But, you know, thank you for the real news for employing Pascal and I for that contract. That really helped a lot. But we had a great interview with Joy James that she actually published in her latest book, Revolutionary Love. So if you haven't checked that out, please check that out. That was one of maybe the best conversations I think Pascal and I ever had together as a team, where we really were on the same page. We had both done a really good amount of work for that show and had a conversation that made, you know, Dr. James kind of question some of the positions that even she had, which she felt was necessary to put in a book. So that's all I can. That's a good question. Because look, I'll be honest, man. There's people like, I don't want him on the show. I don't want to have this fucking guy. I don't want to deal with that shit again. And the only person I get a little nervous is like Esperanza, because usually we used to get so much backlash when she used to come on. We get a lot with Norm, but with Catrone, we don't really get any. I think because me and Gene and Kuba and Toussaint have all published in Sublation. So I guess we're kind of good with that crowd. So they don't really send a lot of hate our way. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it. Who does TIR want to get on the show but can't? For me, it's more people not in academia. I think for me personally, the people that we've been able to get on the show that I've read their books and really appreciate their work, we've had them on, and probably if we really dug them, we still have a relationship with them that maybe they don't have time to come on. There's some people in music that I've lost contact with that I'd like to get back on the show. Actually, a good friend of mine that was in a band called Under Oath and the Almost for a while. Him and I reconnected, but he won't. He's like, dude, I can't do interviews anymore. And that kind of hurt my feelings. I wanted to get him on the show. I definitely had reached out to some music people about coming on. Some are harder to get on than others. There's definitely some sports people I'd like to get on. I saw Emma Vigeland had Arian Foster on her show. He's an interesting cat I'd like to talk to. At a certain point, I'd love to talk to Arian Foster. Ricky Williams, I would love to talk to him. Another athlete. Who else have we tried to get on? For a long time, Cornell West, Pascal wanted to get him on the show. Even when we had the contract with the Real News, originally we tried to get Cornell, and that didn't work. So actually landing him was kind of a big deal. Of course, view-wise, shows us it's a big deal. Who would I want to talk to? You know who I want to talk to really bad that I haven't been able to speak to? I've sent several emails. There's two people. Lloyd Kaufman, the guy that started Troma Films, and Brian Yuzna, the guy that produced, I think he directed too, a movie called Society. These guys, I think, make some interesting kind of gonzo films almost. And I think they have something interesting to say about AI that maybe big Hollywood isn't talking about. That's a good question. You know who I'd like to get on the show? I'd like to get someone like Martha Wash or Cece Peniston on the show and talk about what happened to that gospel vocal that went over the top of dance music and how that got replaced with auto tune and what happened to them after that. I'd love to have them on and talk about that and how their law or how Martha Wash's lawsuit kind of affected not just her career but maybe music moving forward. Did that help push in the auto tune generation to kind of eliminate almost that singing? I'd like to ask that question. I'd like to have them on to talk about that. I've spoken with Penelope Spears, who made the Wayne's World movies, if you guys are familiar with that. She also made a documentary series called Decline of Western Civilization, where the first one is more of a serious movie about punk, and the next one is about the hair scene in LA. I actually reached out to her a year ago and showed her the punk politics video essay and piece that I wrote. She loved both of them and was busy at the time. And I've been trying to get her on for the better part of a year. That is a conversation I would love to have. Just women in filmmaking, her documentary style, which I really appreciate. Henry Rollins declined to come on the show about 2 years ago. That made me a little sad. Other than that, I think I'm pretty surprised at who A, reaches out to come on the show, and B, who we can land as far as guests. Because I still do that thing where I'm just reading stuff constantly, and when I find something interesting, then I'm like, oh, dude, come on the show. So I'm going to have Andrew Hartman back on the show because he's just finished his book on the history of Marxist history. So Toussaint's internet is down. Dilbert, you would love to hear Arami and Pascal discuss anything. You will not. That will never, ever happen. Will never, ever happen. Steve, has Boots Riley been on here? Boots has not been on, and I haven't talked to Boots 2017. I think was the last time I spoke with him. I've tried to reach out via social media. I think I texted him once and didn't hear back. So I don't know. We'll see. That I would love to have Boots on. I watched his last movie or his last series. I'm a Virgo. It was blown away by the end. And I love his visual style of filmmaking. He's just so surreal and silly. But it's also so engrossing to me at the same time. So to have him on would be fun. And I just like talking to Boots Riley. Boots Riley is like an encyclopedia of music and film. When I see him on these shows, it's almost like people want him to recite his quote unquote revolutionary history, because he does come from a family of activists. And that almost feels like the public facing persona. But the best conversations, the hour plus long conversations that me and my ex used to have with Boots when we both lived in the studio were about music and film. He is like an encyclopedia on music. I don't care what genre it is. I mean, down to album artwork. He's a critic. Really, really fun guy to talk to about music and film stuff. Like we could talk horror movies with Boots Riley for an hour and a half, and it would be such a fun conversation. So to have him on, to have one of those kind of conversations, because I think you've heard enough of the activist side of him. You know where he stands. You get it. But to hear him like break down, why Rage Against the Machine's, first album isn't as good as album X, it's kind of like, oh, word. Like you really are tuned into so many genres. Like having him talk about Black Yacht Rock would be a musical history. And also, we Tyler would get into a political economy, talk about Black bourgeoisie and the rise of yachty rock music. But that's the kind of discussion I would love to have with Boots on camera. And hopefully, I'll be going back to the Bay Area in a couple weeks. Hopefully I can run into him. Who knows? Hotep Jesus politics suck, but that nigga is funny. Who is Hotep Jesus? Who is Hotep Jesus? We need Tariq Nasheed or Umar. Yikes. You really want Pascal to spontaneously combust on air, huh? Oh my God. I'm not going to get into why you won't get Pascal and Arami on the same show. I will not get into that. But you just won't get it. Not going to happen. But who is Hotep Jesus? Is Hotep Jesus Umar Johnson? What if Umar came out to the, like, I'm gonna do a screening, for Kayfabe in Philly. What if Umar was there? Yikes. To be honest with you, I wouldn't know how to act. I'm not even gonna lie. Part of me would just laugh. I feel like he probably would be like super chill. Unless he was trying to like PM Dawn me or some shit like that. Which wouldn't be good for anybody. Steve doesn't. Oh, you don't think he would show up? Okay, that's good. Who knows? Who fucking knows? So sad. Toussaint fucking. Oh, yep. Her internet's down. She just sent me a message. She sent me a message through her telephone, which, if you knew Toussaint, that was a big deal. Someone says it would be interesting to see Dr. Ball on the show. Dr. Ball has been on the show, so you can actually see it. Jared Ball was on the show in her first year with Pascal, so I think it's about 3 years old. And I think Pascal was on one of their shows, but he wasn't on with Jared Ball, but I think they did something together at some point. But yeah, Jared's been on the show before, hung out with us in the champagne room as well. And we talked shit and had a good time. So I know people like to think there's this weird beef between the two channels, and no, there is not. Jackie Lukemon's been on the show. Her and Pascal are really good friends. So no, I wish Jared Ball all of the success. And I still think it's funny that Killer Mike is mad at him. I think Jared Ball came out massively victorious in that. So I hope Jared Ball is running his victory lap of, being the ire of a rapper. That's pretty cool. Tried to find Jason on Pod Save, but I couldn't find it. I wasn't on Pod Save. We were on Pod Damn America. Pascal and I were on Pod Damn America. We were not on Pod Save America. I wish. We'd probably have a lot more followers if that was the case. I think those people would lose their shit if we came on that show. If you guys can hook that shit up, game changer. That is a game changer. Can you imagine Jason and Pascal on Pod Save America? I don't even know what we would have to say to get on those people's radar for them to feel comfortable to have us on. Because it's not just you being famous, it's you have to say something that gets on someone's radar and they say, okay, like Ben Burgess wrote a book called Canceling Comedians While the World Burns, in a time where a guy like Joe Rogan was feeling that he was getting quote unquote canceled and his friends were catching shit and LA was the problem. His producer knew who Ben was from maybe Michael Brooks. He's on the show. It's not like you hit a certain level of followers and then Joe Rogan says you have to come on my show. Like, that's not how shit works. So, and I think Joe Rogan knew who Michael Brooks was. So there was a comfort level in bringing him on his show. And that those things can be kind of game changers for your career. You know, if that never happens, I'm still okay. I'm very happy with my life if that never happens. KRS-One would be an interesting guy. If KRS-One came on the show, I would not be on it. And I would just let Pascal. I would have Pascal and Cedric Johnson interview KRS-One, and I would just not be on the show. Maybe TIR, but definitely Pascal and Cedric. I would have them on to interview KRS-One. I wouldn't be able to do it with a straight face. Because I'd be like, KRS-One. Wow. But wow, Steve is mad at KRS-One for his Eric. Yeah, that's rightfully so. But I just think a lot of those rappers from that era, they look at New York kind of in a different light, man. I think those rappers of that era remember a very violent New York. Maybe not all of them, but they weren't really vocal in speaking about Giuliani and his stop and frisk stuff. They were definitely vocal about self-destruction. And I think we have to be honest that might be the pull up your pants era of hip hop. We don't want to say that out loud. I don't think we want to think it, because this is also like the golden age of hip hop, as it is for me, a soon to be 46-year-old man. But, you know, those politics are kind of the politics of, like, you know, do for self. The only way we're going to get out of this situation is, you know, with black capitalism. At best, you get some black nationalism, which is, you know, definitely next to black capitalism. So I probably wouldn't be the right guy to have on that show, because I would probably be looked at as too antagonistic. And I don't have the vocabulary that Pascal and Cedric have to kind of hide my antagonism in big words. So I'd watch that show, Pascal and Cedric, and maybe TIR interviewing KRS-One or anybody from that era. Chuck D. Maybe I could interview Chuck D. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Chuck D, but he's, you know, again, maybe I grew out of having heroes, so to speak, where these people could do no wrong. And I just kind of look at them as like, nah, I really respect that song. Like I'll wear my Public Enemy shirt and not feel anything about it. I love the music. But I don't know if I agree with everything those guys have said over the years. And I don't know if I think they kind of look at themselves as maybe more important than they really are in the grand scheme of things. Someone says FD signifier would be super interesting. Maybe. I mean, I was on a Brianna Joy Gray show with that guy. and he brought Pascal on his show or something he did. So some of the stuff I've seen him do is interesting. I don't know if I agree with everything he says, but maybe that would be a show. We'll see. You had rappers talking about they should bring back Stop and Frisk. Steve says, yeah, because again, Steve, I think those rappers remember a very violent New York in the 80s where it was like literally frightening. And then Giuliani comes in and is John Wayne in a sense. And, you know, kind of back to we're all living in the Bronson age. The way we look at justice is revenge. Justice and revenge work hand in glove. And we're still trying to figure out how not to see the world that way. Which again is a problem with, I think, the way we document news stories. You know, for an example of the Bronson age, again, I'll use police tactics, right? To catch the Central Park rapists, the same tactics that were used to lock up those 5 kids that didn't rape that woman in Central Park. It was the same thing they did. The Central Park preppy murderer might have been 18 at the time. I think the oldest one of those kids was 16, so not that much. He wasn't that much older than them. Maybe he was 21, but I don't think he was even that old. And those tactics used literally caught a person that was a sociopath that killed a woman. He's free. He served his time and he's free. Is the world a better place? I don't know. But those same tactics that were used put 5 young men in prison who are now free that didn't do anything. So the way we see justice is always kind of told through this lens of vengeance where, you know, policing is a one-size-fits-all solution. And it's the one-size-fits-all problem as well. And it's just a little more complicated than that. And I don't know if we know how to have that conversation without it getting into some murky territory. I mean, last Thursday, we got into kind of the murky territory of the unhoused and kind of the way we view crime now. Because I think you cannot say crime without mentioning an unhoused population. I mean, not start off early in the stream, talk about this new case of a white guy using MMA, Brazilian jiu-jitsu to incapacitate a black man and then kind of mocking him while he has him on the ground. Doesn't kill him, but, you know, felt very justified in the mocking behavior, which I think is problematic. Should get the Snow, the white Canadian. I would fucking love to get Snow on the show. I would love to get Ice Cube on the show. Of course, I'm a fan of the Friday movies. I'm a fan of Boys in the Hood. I'm a fan of his first 3 solo outings. I remember when Death Certificate came out. Game changer for young Jason Miles. It might have some influence on my attitude and the way I see the world to this day. Do I see him as a problematic figure as well? Of course. Can't remember who it was. Dr. Dylan Rodriguez sent me, he texted me. He's like, what is this shit? And it was the Ice Cube Tucker Carlson interview. And I was like, Dylan, man, these cats are all reactionary. He just laughed. But yeah, you know, we'll see what happens with the future of this show. I'm very excited with the future of the show. I'm excited about finishing this film and what that's going to mean for more longer projects like this. And got my fingers crossed. And since my co-host is gone, thank you guys. I don't know if I can do this stream. Gene is busy, his new role. Thank you guys so much for hanging out for 3 hours. Let me see if there's a total. There's a total up at the. Oh, you know what? I can't see the total because my computer has it in pesos. But if this was dollars, we'd be killing it. But in pesos, we're 38% of the way. So Ken says you get on Pod Save by wearing a blue Patagonia vest. I do not. I don't have the socially conscious white man uniform, which apparently consists of a blue Patagonia vest, sensible jeans, and or khakis. I don't have that uni. Right now, I'm wearing my Left Reckoning tank top with what Toussaint would call inappropriate shorts. I think she's just jealous of my leg game. The blink lighting is this inexpensive camera that is, I'm so fabulous that it's just blowing up the lighting. But thank you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out. I will see some of you tomorrow. I'll be with Ben Burgess. We'll be talking with Freddie DeBoer about his latest book. And definitely we'll be back Tuesday. We'll be with our good friend Dan Mello, who wrote a little piece in the Washington Post about what's going on at the border. I think our show Tuesday is called "Has the Left Forgotten About the Mexican Border?" And I think it has. Someone says get Ben Dixon to share some of his wardrobe. You know, back when we first started, Ben Dixon was a big get for us. And the internet sphere, I think, changed on poor Ben for a while. I don't know if some things happened. I just remember I heard him do a diss song to Vladimir Putin, and I don't know how I felt about that. It's really weird. But we've had Ben on. We had a good show with Ben. I think we talked to Ben for like 2 hours. Me, Marcus, and Pascal. That was a fun show. And I think we've all been on Ben Dixon's show at some point in time. Definitely Marcus has a few times. So, all right, guys. On that note, we are. Oh, and the link is still up. I think there's like 12 hours left. Every dollar matters. I'm going to keep it independent. Take this thing on the road. I cannot wait to be on the road in y'all's cities. So peace. Thank you so much.